Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of Broom Closet Talks. So today we're talking about dreams and all things having to do with other states of consciousness while you sleep and all that good stuff. So anyway, who wants to share first? I know, Brenda, you had a few things that you wanted to talk about. And since you weren't here last week, so we missed you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So I know you had mentioned about the whole concept of sleep paralysis, right? We brought that up. That came up. And have you experienced that like recently, or has any of you like had that experience with sleep paralysis?
Once.
Yeah.
Me too. I've had it a couple of times to the point where I actually thought I was being jumped by a ghost because of how intense it was. Not being able to move, not being able to speak with my eyes wide open, not being able to even blink. And that was very, very scary because it's confusing. You don't know if something's holding you down or if your body's going into some type of a shock, or, you're just like in the state of mind, like, what's going on? Who's here? Who's touching me? Because you can't move.
Right. And you just feel so powerless. It's terrifying. Yeah. And you brought out a good point when you say you feel like you're being attacked, right? Like a ghost is attacking you or it's jumping out at you. There's always been, I think, this battle of between Western medicine and, the psychological aspects of it, of the phenomenon, versus the more metaphysical, spiritual side of it. Because a lot of, sleep doctors and so on and so forth say that it's a neurological condition when you experience sleep paralysis versus the attack. But, that really, it depends, I feel, like there are neurological cases of it, granted, you know what I mean? But on the same token, I've also experienced it from a spiritual standpoint. So I'm on the fence because I've had both experiences, because I have a history of, seizures, and I've had that sort of paralysis from seizures, but I've also had it because I was spiritually attacked. So I don't like to talk about it a lot, but it happened, and I'm not gonna devalue someone's experience when they're gonna go and say, I was spiritually attacked, and that was my experience with sleep paralysis. I'm not going to debunk that because I went through it, and I feel that's the thing about it. Like, for people who try to seek help for it and they seek psychiatric help, 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, it was a neurological phenomenon. And then you're questioning yourself. And then, it's a whole process. I just feel it really has to do with the personal experience of it as a whole.
So my main thing is, what did you see during your sleep paralysis? And that was one of my main questions all the time. Like, when it happened to me, my eyes were wide open and I tried getting up. I tried, looking over and seeing if anybody was there to help, but it was impossible to move. But what I do remember is seeing shadows. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I said, I must have been spiritually attacked because I'm seeing the shadows, but I can't move. Even if you try going back to sleep and reprogramming your brain to wake up, it won't happen. It's like it takes time for it to just go away. And then you wake up realizing, what just happened? Was I attacked? I mean, why wasn't my body functioning? And it was a scary moment for me because you feel helpless, like you said, extremely helpless. And then again, just like you said, that psychological point of view. Am I losing it? Is this just part of a dream? Maybe it was something that I had before going to bed. You start questioning what actually happened. And honestly, I haven't had one of those again, but I do remember it was a reading that I did previously that night before going to bed. That's why I cut out my readings where I don't do nighttime readings anymore. I try not to. But it was a reading that I had done for someone. And after that reading, I went to bed, the normal, take a shower, go to bed. And that's when and there's always those weird times, 2:00, 2:30 in the morning, 3:00.
The witching hour.
Witching hours, yeah.
Yeah, I woke up at 3:33 last night.
I did too, like a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And then I woke up, I fell back to sleep and I woke up again. Guess what, guys? 444, 444. And I'm like, really? What are you trying to tell me? I'm trying to freaking sleep here and I'm getting synchronicities and whatnot.
So it's like, so you finally, you go through it at those times. And the thing that goes through your head is right away is, okay, so who came into the apartment and, what's going on? Who's here? That's the first thing. But when you don't see anybody or see anything, then you're like, okay, so what the hell is going on? So you're, if you're one of those people that you're into aliens and abductions and all that, you start thinking you're being abducted by aliens. So you're like, scared because you don't see anything either. You still don't see the lights. You don't see the spaceships. You don't see the little green guys. So you're still trying to figure out what's going on. Am I dead? Am I alive? All of that goes through your head at the moment. And it sure did for me. I was, it was a very, very odd experience. But what I got out of it definitely was not to do nighttime readings. Since I stopped that, I haven't had any other incidents, but that definitely, it spooked me enough not to try it again. So I let that go.
It's interesting you make that conclusion about not doing readings at night. Like, I remember I used to do them a lot, and I used to do them in my room. And I used to find for a while that I had like severe insomnia, and then I would have not so great dreams, right? And I was teaching my class, I was teaching a psychic development class, and one of my students, he was like really like in tune. And I was just talking with them after the class and telling them, yeah, I've been having issues with sleep lately. It's just been and then he goes, stop reading at night in your room. Just like that. He was just like, stop reading in your room. That's what it is. And I was like, yeah, that might have something to do with it. Like I was caught off guard for a minute, but he's like, damn, I do that. And I would just pull random cards. It wasn't even like concentrating on anything specifically. It just was habitual for me to kind of pull, or if I got a new deck, I would play around with it and pull some cards and whatever, and stuff like that. And he just said, yeah, don't read in your room anymore, because that's what's disturbing your sleep. So ever since that, and I put it to the test, right? So I said, you know what, I'm going to try that. I, do my readings mostly here, or, sitting on my couch, whatever. And I don't do them in my room anymore. And I've noticed a difference. I'm able to sleep better. And I'm like, dang, he was right. He was totally right. And I think what it is that, anytime you do readings, you're opening up the channels, and sometimes even though we do close a reading, we do stop, whatever, it still leaves that energy of that openness lingering. And I always would have a cup of water next to me when I would do readings. And I found out something interesting. Like last week, we talked about paganism, right? And I remember I did an interview with a guest on another podcast I used to be on, and she did candomblé, like the Brazilian santeria. Candomblé, that's what it's called. And she said in their religion, a glass of water opens up the spirit gates.
Yes, I agree. It's a conduit. It's like in Santeria, there's major orishas from the water. So yeah, everyone knows her. And then there's the one from the depths of the water, which hardly anyone really speaks about. That one holds the mysteries. Her name is Olokum. Well, his name. In this case, it's male, is really male, but some people see him as also a woman. But Olokum, and Olokum is very powerful. And yeah, the orishas, the water orishas, they're there to open up. And if you in Santeria, if you have been crowned or initiated into an orisha, and it turns out that it's a water one, that means that your psychic abilities hold truth to the powers of the orishas, the water orishas, because they're so, it's water is a conduit. Water is a conduit. And if you notice in Christianity and in Catholicism, and who else? Even the evangelists, I believe, do that too. Baptism. The baptisms are being held in water. In order for you to guys, they use water, holy water, water from the rivers, any type of water, but water is being used to call the Holy Spirit.
Yep. And I always would have a cup of water. Well, the thing is, growing up, when my grandmother had her altar, she always had a cup of water on it, and so that was something I would always have on my altar too, because I thought it was just a necessity to have. I didn't realize, in essence, what it represented was opening the spiritual gates, opening the gate to spirit. And that's traditionally what it means. And I remember the girl that we interviewed, she was just like, she's like, oh, you're gonna have visitors. If you have a cup of water in your room, more than likely. So if you don't want any high activity spiritually wise, and you're trying to prevent any type of activity, I do recommend not having a glass of water in your room. If you do, keep it somewhere else. If you have a set up somewhere outside of the bedroom, because you will have activity. So I remember she had mentioned that, which I found very interesting. Like, as far as, spiritual attack and things happening while you're asleep, she said 9 times out of 10, what could prevent that is the water, keeping the water out of the room. So I found that very interesting. So yeah, so
that is interesting.
Yeah, that's what she said. But I mean, personally, it's hard to do because, I get thirsty, but I drink outside. I don't keep the glass of water. And here's what's even funnier. My cats have a tendency of knocking my glasses of water from my altar constantly. And I would get pissed off, right? And I would be like, why are they doing that all the time? So like Ozzy, my male cat, I had this really beautiful crystal goblet that a friend of mine gave to me years ago, and I would keep that for my altar, and I would fill it up with water and whatever. And I was always told when it has bubbles, you got to change it because it's sucking up the negative energy with the bubbles and everything. So he would constantly knock it over. Since he's been here, I can't have a glass of water on my altar at all. He would knock it down constantly, and I would just be like, and I would get so mad. But now I kind of think, I'm like, maybe he's just trying to keep the gates closed so I can have a peaceful sleep. Maybe he's doing it to protect me. Now that I think about it, like I look at it from a different perspective now. I'm like, okay. And I notice if I have a glass of water anywhere else, he won't do nothing to it. It's just when it's there.
Well, Egyptians hold cats as gods of the underworld too. So it's like the connection there. So cats have sensitivity to the dead as well. Well, a lot of have sensitivity to the dead. We're the ones that see it as much, unless we have certain sensitivity, high sensitivity. But
he's coming up to me. He knows I'm talking about him. Yeah, we're talking about you, buddy. He just came up to me like this, like, mommy. Yeah, and it's interesting because we just had the feast of Bast over the weekend. So which is like a really big festival where they celebrate actually like sacred sexuality of women, fertility, and things like that. So I put it up in the group as a post, and I found that very like interesting how it's a really big celebration, and I've always felt an affinity to her. I mean, I drew, yeah. And I drew her even before I knew who she was. I used to draw an Egyptian cat woman, like a cat humanoid woman, not knowing that was the Egyptian god Bast. It wasn't until I took mythology up in high school that my teacher told me.
Interesting.
That's who I kept drawing. And I showed her, I had my old sketchbooks that I brought. And when we were learning about the Egyptian gods and goddesses in class, I was like, holy shit, I've been totally drawing her for years. And I didn't know who she was. And I told her, she's like, really, that's intriguing. And I remember I came with my books the next day. I'm like, see, I told you, I've been drawing her since I was like 11 years old, my old sketchbooks. And she was like, that's really fascinating. Perhaps there's a spiritual connection there. And I think that was kind of like the beginnings for me, like to identify with gods and goddesses and things like that. So yeah.
So what was your experience? What kind of a situation were you in with your sleep paralysis?
Yeah. Oh, well, I just wanted to say something about the water thing. In Japanese Buddhism, when I first started doing, I had an altar, and on the altar there's a water cup, and I remember filling up the water cup and doing my chanting, and then feeling the water cup, and it was like cooking. It was like crazy energy coming out of the water. And I showed my friend. I was like, look at this. She was like, oh, I'm afraid. I don't know what the heck that is. But also, and with the cat, what was the cat's name again? Bastille?
Yeah,
no.
Bast. Yeah, Bast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison, that's one of her spirit guides, and she picked out a statue of Bast when she was only 4 years old, and has had him since she was 4. But sleep paralysis, there was one time, I think it was a time I was in like a high alert state, kind of like really a lot of anxiety in my life at the time. And I remember thinking that somebody was coming over and trying to break in. So I kept on trying to force myself to wake up. But I remember all I was able to do is open my eyes, and I didn't know where I was at first. And then all I remember seeing is the light coming in from, like a night light coming in, because the door was open and there was a light in the hallway. So that came in, and I tried to get up and I tried to speak, and I couldn't do anything. And I did try to get up, I was like getting up. And then I saw out of the corner of my eye, my hand, but it was white. It was opaque, like a ghost. And I saw that and I was like, holy shit. And I just like snapped back in my body, and that was it.
So you had like an out of body experience.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on, because the room that I was staying in had we had a roof leak, and there was black mold in the closet in the room I was staying in. That was like from Hurricane Floyd from 1999. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my house was in Bound Brook, and we had water all around our house, and the roof leaks, water came in. There was a big mess after that. So that was really odd. It happened once, it never happened again. Wow. Not like that. Like I felt spirits kind of trying to pull me up and pull me out of my body, and I'm like, no, F you, I'm not leaving. You know what I mean? But that happened once too, at a friend's house. But he was having activity in that house, so it doesn't really surprise me that it happened there.
Yeah.
He liked to drink too.
It's interesting. Yeah, right. Because when that happens, and you're still in bed and whatever, you question whether you're awake or asleep. Because I know that when it happened to me, that's what I questioned. I wasn't sure if I was awake or asleep. And then I remember when it happened to me, my boyfriend was sleeping next to me, and I looked at him and he was sound asleep. And when it happened, and then he woke up and was like, what the hell? And then after everything happened, he forgot about it. He didn't remember not that he forgot about it, but he didn't remember anything. And that made me question, guys, like, was I asleep? Was this a nightmare? How to, it's a very weird phenomenon. So
definitely.
My question for you guys, like, how did you get it to stop? Like the paralysis, did you do anything to make it stop, or it just stopped on its own?
For me, I think that after I saw the shadows, it was like a done deal. Like it was like meant for me to see what I had to see. That was the message. Like, look, you can't do anything. We got you.
Right.
So I'm thinking that, it had to be a message or something, because after that, I was able to come to, and I was freaked out enough not to want to go to sleep the next night. But again, I promised myself after that not to do any more nighttime readings, because I have a feeling that it was that. I've always had a feeling that it was that. Had to do with the reading. I can't explain it, but it's like you snap out of it. Like Lisa said, she snapped out of it, and that's what happened with me. I snapped out of it.
Yeah. I think it does what it does. And like, I know my mom has had multiple terrifying experiences with sleep paralysis. And she would always say what helped her was prayer. Prayer was what get her out of it, because it would be a result from nightmares for her. Like she'll wake up out of the nightmare and be with the sleep paralysis. And like she said, that's always what will help her. And I had a number of other people too say that prayer is what got them out of it and everything. So, but I guess there's different means for that. I mean, you could call on your guides, you can call on your ancestors, prayer, whatever the case may be. It's just calling in, spirits to protect. But yeah, like, for me, when I still don't know to this day if I was awake or asleep when I got attacked that time. I called on like my warriors. I called on my guides to like, handle it. There goes Ozzy. He's being active tonight. He's probably sensing what I've been talking about here. So plus my other kitty, she's laying down there. She's getting ready to have babies. So don't worry, I'm not touching her. Relax. So I think he's being kind of active and protective of her right now. So
has anyone ever had vivid dreams? Those type of dreams that be like we call precognitive, because it's like a week later, 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, wait a minute, deja vu.
Yeah.
And had that dream.
Yeah, I have. I think the most memorable precog dream that I had was when I dreamt of 9/11.
Yeah, I did too. I had a dream a plane flew into my house.
Wow.
I think a lot.
I dreamt of it. Yeah, and it was crazy, guys, because like it was 2 dreams that same night, and then I had a repeat of it several days later. So the first dream, I was in like a marble lobby, right? And I remember there was these 2 big escalators in the lobby, and I'm like just looking around, and I'm like, man, this is a big ass lobby, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? So I kind of felt that sense of being out of place in the lobby, just mesmerized on how big it was, right? So there was people coming down the escalators and whatever. Then all of a sudden, on like to the right hand side, a door busts open, and these people start running out, like coming toward me, like rushing toward me, and their faces were melted. Their faces were like burnt and melted, like the flesh off, guys. And I was terrified. And then one, I don't remember if it was a guy or a girl, but one got really close to my face, was like, help me, please help me. And his face was all burnt and the flesh was all like peeling off. And I was like, you know, like I felt my heart, you know, like, oh my God, I was so terrified. And then I was just looking at people with their faces melted and skin burnt and everything. And I never seen anything like that before. And then the dream switches, right? And I'm in the airport and I'm online and I'm waiting to go through, you know, customs and whatever to get on the plane and stuff. And I'm waiting and I'm like agitated. And I look down and my hand is a man's hand because it's hairy like a male hand. So I'm looking down and I'm holding a briefcase. And I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to get on this plane. And I just remember being very anxious to get on the plane. And like everything's taking long. And I'm like, I got to get on this plane or whatever. And then I woke up. And I had, right? So I had the dream 2 more times. The last time I had it, it was the last dream had an explosion, like a fireball. And then out of the fireball, the people were running. And again, people with their faces melted, burnt, everything. The last dream I remember being more catastrophic, right? And I told my mom, and, you know, my mom was an EMT for, you know, many years. And she had responded to the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, right? So for some reason, I was just worried. And I'm like, Mommy, you know, if you ever do any type of call or standby, stay clear of anything like explosions or anything like that. I'm really, you know, that dream freaked me out. And Mommy was like, oh, wow, this is like the 3rd time, right? I said, yeah, this is the 3rd time I've had the dream. So, what was it, like a week and a half later, 9/11 happened. And I was downtown in Vesey Street. I had an appointment. I was supposed to be downtown in Vesey Street, excuse me, but they changed it to the Brooklyn office. But the Vesey Street office was in World Trade Center 5, which collapsed that day, right? And I remember to get to the office, I used to have to take the train to the World Trade Center train station. And then they called me last minute to tell me we're not meeting at the Manhattan office, we're meeting at the Brooklyn office. But I was still in downtown Brooklyn and I still witnessed the second plane hit the South Tower. So when that happened, that's when everything came full circle, my dream. That was what I dreamt. And the first thing I thought about, I don't want my mom to respond. I don't want my mom to go, right? So and I'm trying to get through to my mom and it's busy, her job is busy. And I keep calling. I can't get through to her. I'm trying her cell phone. She's not picking up her cell phone. Because when it happened, you know, the 911 calls were coming in and my mom works for an ambulance service and she was a call taker and she was taking all the calls. But when they needed her on the road, they would send her out on the road. And I knew they were going to need people and my mom would volunteer. So essentially that was my fear. I did not want her going over there. So I finally got through to her and I was with my grandmother too. And grandma was like, get a hold of her. My grandma's super psychic too. So me and grandma looked at each other instinctively at what we just saw, a plane hitting the South Tower. Immediately, we both looked at each other and knew we got to get in touch with my mom right away and tell her, do not go. And finally I got through and I told her, Mommy, don't go, please don't go. This is bad. This is not like the 93 bombing. This is bad, Mom. This is massive loss of life. Don't go. And Mommy's like, well, if they need me, you know, I have to go, Chas. And I'm like, I don't want you to go, Mommy. This is bad. Right. So she had went downstairs to, you know, the operations department where all the units were. and they send out every single unit. They had sent out the last unit like 10 minutes before mommy arrived downstairs. And so they told her, we don't need you and don't worry about it, just go home. They send mom home, and normally they would have not. They would have sent mom out because my mom was kind of a veteran. She's been an EMT for a long time. She was familiar with World Trade Center. She's been there before. So it would have made sense for her to go. You know what I mean? But they didn't send her. And the last unit that they sent ended up doing triage in the North Tower, and it collapsed. The EMT that was triaging in the lobby of the North Tower died. So what I was dreaming was the North Tower lobby with the 2 elevators, because a couple of days later, when they had the paper clippings, right, of how the, World Trade Center used to look, they had a picture of the main lobby. And I'm telling you guys, my hair stood up because I was like, holy shit, that's what I was dreaming. I was dreaming the North lobby, the North Tower lobby. And mommy was like, yeah, that's where they set up the triage. They set it up in there.
My brother told me to stay away from the towers about a week or 2 before it happened, because I went hiking at the Palisades or Cliffs or whatever, which is right outside of New York. And he's like, don't go. I was like, I went. But
you went that day, or you went another day?
No, like 2 weeks prior.
Oh,
he's
okay.
like, stay out of Manhattan. I'm like, okay.
It's curious, Lisa, because there were reports of other people who never had any psychic abilities to even, say that they could see anything going on, but they did have dreams of 9/11. Just like I don't know if you guys remember when the space shuttle back in the 80s had also exploded.
The Challenger.
Yeah, I remember that.
There were people
in second grade, but yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Well, there were people that also reported, having dreams of the spaceship exploding. So it's a phenomenon, and to say the least, that everyone who had those dreams or everyone that experienced something similar to that, it can't be wrong. Those are precognitive dreams. And I think that in rare occasions, when it's something that's extremely, extremely dangerous or something that's going to affect the masses, we as a human race, we all come together in dreams.
Yeah.
Because it's not impossible that everyone, or at least a good majority of the people, had experienced one time or another a horrific event happening for 9/11. I heard many people that don't have any psychic abilities to say that they had a dream weeks before, months before, even the day of, before happening. So it's not strange. It's not unlikely for precognitive dreams to exist.
Absolutely. I mean, it's known scientific research. They research people who have these abilities. There are people who have precognitive dreams daily. There are people who have telekinetic experiences as a result of their precognitive dreams. So what was the movie back in the day with Drew Barrymore? Y'all remember Firestarter?
Oh yeah.
Remember Firestarter? Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, her parents were in some sort of experiment for psychic phenomena. Like if you had some sort of psychic phenomena, they would inject you, I think, with something. Yeah. And she turned out she was pregnant, and that's how her daughter had the telekinetic powers of, she could start fires, pyrokinetic. That's what she was. She was a pyrokinetic. So her mother had ability, and I think her father did too. And throughout the whole movie, they're just trying to escape from the government. And what's crazy about it, there's been known cases of this existing where people have these psychic abilities and are under the watchful eye of the government. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's why it's like, you know, I keep it to a need to know basis, but I do have, I've had precognitive dreams since I was little. I remember one time I dreamt with, but I wasn't little, but I was a little older. I was a teenager, and I had dreamt with my aunt, and she was, you know, with her boyfriend for a very long time, and I had a dream that she broke up with him and he moved out and everything. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, yeah, I dreamt of her, and he left, he moved out, they broke up. And Mom's like, what? Like, you know, they've been together for so many years. Like, it was just bizarre. Right when I told her that, the phone rings. The phone rings right when I told her, rings, Mommy picks up the phone, and it was her, and she told Mom right when I said it, that I dreamt it.
So I'm like,
and Mommy just looked at me like,
I'm curious, the people that watch us, how many of them out there have had precognitive dreams? Yes. I mean, we can even have like a one-on-one in next week's episode, you know, if anyone answers out there.
Yeah, how many share them.
Share your experiences. Let us know how many people out there have had precognitive dreams. And it could be of anything. It could even be, you know, you buying the house that you're living in now. Mm-hmm. But, you know, share your experiences with us. Let us know.
Right. Because it's not always bad. You know?
Yeah. Like I had a dream that I saw my ex on a telephone pole, like on a flyer, saying that he's playing at a local bar. And I was living in Pflugerville, Texas at the time. And there was this bar down the street called the Lone Star Bar. And I've never been in it, but I always passed it by. I was like, oh, that place looks really cool. So I had this dream that he was in a 3-piece band and he was playing. And come to find out that he had taken a liking to country music, which he swore off when we were married, but now he likes it. And then, oh, excuse me. Sorry. So I wake up and I message him about the dream. He's like, oh, that would be really cool, right? And then I go onto the website of the bar and it looks exactly how it did in my dream. And I've never been inside of it.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
See, those are the good ones, you know, like I've had dreams like that too. Like, yeah. I had a dream. I got up in the morning, I got dressed and I went out, and I found this new store that they just opened up, and I was like, oh, this is a nice store. And I walk into the store and I'm looking around and everything, and I end up buying this pretty dress. Literally exactly how I dreamt. I was on Myrtle Avenue. They opened up a new store, bought a pretty dress for myself. So those are the good ones.
Yeah.
Not every precog dream, guys, is bad. So there's good ones.
So I have another question. So how many people out there think that when you dream, you also manifest what you want?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Starting off with you ladies, because I know you guys have already manifest what you have now.
I do. You know? I mean, think about it. There's no scientific explanation as to where dreams come from. They have been trying to find this out since forever. You know, I know Sigmund Freud went on to say that dreams are fragments of our subconscious, and, you know, our suppressed sexual nature, because, you know, everything with Freud was sexual and shit. But but ultimately, that aside, there is no real explanation of where dreams come from. And the best way, you know, I figure it's a higher state of consciousness. That's how I have identified dreams. Dreams is, you know, the 4D. You know, we're living in 3D, you know, dream state is the 4D, and that's like where our subconscious opens up and we have these phenomena. Like I've had some crazy, now that we're talking about dreams, how about lucid dreams, guys? How about dreams so clear, so concise that you remember them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You remember every detail, every word, every person you came across and what they said to you and how vivid the colors were, just the entire thing, right? I've had dreams like that. Lucid dreams are like something that happens very often for me and as well. And the 9/11 dream, guys, honestly was what got the ball rolling for me to start recording dreams. So I've been on and off recording my dreams since 2001. And I, when
That's
I
kind
was
of cool.
yeah, and when I was moving down here, because when you're moving, you find shit you haven't seen in years, right? So I found some of my old dream journals, guys. And what was wild was some of my old dreams literally came to pass. So that's what bugged me out. Okay, I had a dream that I saw that I was hanging out with my sister, and my sister was a little older, and she was holding 2 little girls in her hand. My sister ended up having 2 daughters, and I dreamt that back in like 2002, I think. And 10 years later, my sister has 2 girls, and I dreamt her with 2 girls. And in the dream, it was funny because I was reading the dream, and I'm like, my sister's walking toward me with 2 little girls. I'm like, who are these little girls? Like, whose kids are these? I was like wondering. Yeah, but that's what I had dreamt. And I was like, wow. And then another time, I had a dream with a little girl. I was walking through a tunnel with her, and she was like telling me, don't be afraid. And I'm like, what's your name? And she's like, my name is Lily. And my niece's name is Lily, my oldest niece.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I'm walking through the tunnel with her, and I'm like afraid because I can't see and it's getting dark. But she's just there with me holding my hand, and she had like a little lantern with her. And I said, what's your name? And her name was Lily. And then
she was coming through the tunnel.
Yeah.
Head first.
Right, exactly. Birth canal, right. And I was there when my sister went into labor. I was in the hospital.
See?
Yeah. So, and what's interesting is that at one point, my sister went into fetal distress with her because her heartbeat, I believe, started lowering. So that's why they did cesareans. But yeah, I was totally there. And what was interesting, that dream, I was writing a novel at the time, and I wrote the little sister character as Lily as well because of the dream. And in the story, I wrote Lily, and then my sister ended up naming her first daughter Lily. And I told my sister, I was like, dude, that's the character in my story, the character's little sister. She's like, wow, I forgot about that. I said, yeah, I based that on a dream. And I told her about the dream, and she was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I totally dreamt the baby. I dreamt Lily. Like, so I'm telling you guys, dream journaling is really fascinating, especially like if you could keep them in a safe place and go back to them. It'll blow your mind because you'll realize a lot of these dreams came to pass, or they were symbolic of something really profound that's going to happen later on. So now that we're talking about this, and I wanted to tell you guys off air, but I'm glad we're doing it on air because this is something everyone that's watching can check out as well. We decided to do this episode this week, right? We decided on doing dreams this week and talking about dream phenomena and stuff. So literally the next day, my cousin from Puerto Rico reaches out to me. He's like, hey, Chas, how you been? And whatever. And I haven't heard from him in a while. And he started a podcast, right? And my uncle, his father, passed away a few months ago. And his way to, mourn and go through the process is to do this podcast and, kind of get his ideas and his creative flow with things, right? So recently, he found out that his father would record his dreams. And he found a dream journal of his dad's last 5 dreams before he passed. And he has them up now on the podcast as episodes, the last 5 dreams. So far, I've only listened to 1 episode and it brought me to tears. But what I'm going to suggest for him, because the episodes are in Spanish, but he speaks English as well. So I'm going to tell him if he could translate them, have some English episodes to share, because the first episode had me in tears. Like, it had me like, wow.
So at least English subtitles too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely translation for it, because they're deeply profound, guys. Like, the first one is, it has to do with him coming across a stranger, right? And it was a gentleman and he seemed lost or whatever. And the guy asks my uncle, you know, are you a religious man? Do you believe in God? And he's like, yeah, you know, like, I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe that there's a higher power out there and whatever. And he was like, yeah, you know, well, that's why I came to you, because I need forgiveness and I want you to help me with the forgiveness. And he's like, well, how can I help you? And he was like, yeah, well, that's what you're going to do for me. You're going to help me to forgive myself. And my uncle was like, I don't understand what that means. But he was like, yeah, because that's your new job. That's going to be your new job, to help me and to help other people. And basically feel, you know, the whole feel of it. Okay. Because I understand Spanish very well. I could write it very well. I have trouble speaking it, but Brenda, you're way more well-versed than me. So but I did understand the episode to the point it did make me cry, because I did feel what it was entailing was his spiritual work. Once he transitions, he's going to be a guide for lost souls, for people who are lost and need to find guidance and need to find, you know, forgiveness within themselves and things like that. So, wow. Right. So that's why I was just like taken aback, and it brought me to tears. And because the man kept insisting that this is going to be your job now. You know what I mean? So yeah. And that was just the first dream, guys. I haven't even got to the second or third or the fourth or the fifth. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I know my cousin just kept insisting for me to listen and have the family listen, because they're so deeply profound as to, and I feel on a spiritual level, as to what is going to happen for him transitioning. So it was kind of preparing him as what was going to come for him. So yeah. But I'll share the link up, guys, for those who speak Spanish, and I'll ask that my cousin for now put subtitles up on them, so so everyone could sort of experience this. But I just found it very ironic that this came up on the day we decided to do a dream episode. So maybe later on I could actually have him on and talk about it more. But again, so I think we're gonna wrap up now, guys. This is a really good episode, covered a lot, and we want to hear from you. Like Brenda said, share your dreams with us. Tell us about your precog dreams, any other dreams that you would want us to look into, do some dream interpretation readings and get our insight as to what the dreams mean. We'll do that as well. So yeah, so this was really interesting and I enjoyed it. So all right, guys, until next time.
Bye, everyone. And
bye. Thanks for tuning in.
Like Chastity's.
Yep. Keep like dreaming.
Like Chastity said, we'll be waiting for you next week, and tune in, and we'll even do interactive for you guys. Just let us know.
Absolutely. All right.